The first thing we're going to do is unpack the phrase toxic masculinity. You've probably heard these words before. You might be interested to know it actually goes back several decades, but it really rose in popularity in the midst of the #MeToo movement. What that meant, though, is that toxic masculinity really became more useful as a hashtag or as a news headline grabbing people's attention rather than actually something that invited thoughtful conversation. One of the problems, for example, is that when people are thinking about masculinity through the lens, being a man is something really tangible. This is what it means to be a man. And if you're labeling toxic on top, are you just saying that all men are toxic? Because that might not feel that true for a lot of people. And so in this way, it becomes polarizing, right? And so at Next Gen Men, we really don't use the phrase toxic masculinity at all. Before we entirely throw it in the waste paper basket, though, there is one thing that I want to share about it, which is the idea that toxicity is not lethal. And I think this is really interesting, that the human body is designed to resist toxicity. It's actually quite good at it. It's only when you're solely immersed in something toxic for a long period of time that it actually becomes dangerous. And so when I think about some of these pressures, norms, expectations, and harms related to masculinity, that idea of immersion is relevant to me. And also, before we stop talking about toxic masculinity, let's unpack it a little bit further, and let's do that through the concept of the man box. The man box is a concept that is often used with students to think about the gender stereotypes related to masculinity. It's really simple. Inside of the box is what's expected of you as a boy or as a man. And outside that box is what's not allowed for you as a boy or as a man. To give you some examples or themes to think about, a research organization called Equimundo came up with 7, what they called pillars of the man box. They identified self-sufficiency, acting tough, physical attractiveness, aggression and control, rigid gender roles, heterosexuality and homophobia, and hypersexuality as some of the dominant pressures and forces that are impacting boys and young men. And so for your breakout conversation now, I want you to get at specificity. What does this look like in your school context? What are some of the ways that those pressures or expectations manifest in the classroom, in school hallways, or on sports teams? Get at examples of your real life students, and I'll see you after the breakout discussion.